I'm not the best. I'm not the best golf cart buggy driver.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and like Robin Sharma says,
if you're not living your dream life or at your absolute best, it's because you're in your own way.
So let's help you get out of your way with Robin Sharma and my take on his top 10 rules to success. Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Do the inner work.
Anyone who is not living at absolute world class, you are your own worst enemy. But because it's so subconscious, if you haven't done the deep inner work, we blame it on, oh, it's the supplier. Oh, it's the market is contracting. Oh, it's a hard time in the global economy. Mm-hmm. The reality is there are people out there at every possible domain of wealth who are doing amazing things. Mm-hmm. If you're not living your dream life or at your absolute best, it's because you're in your own way. And what is the solution? It's working not just on mindset like so many people are talking about. Mindset, heart set, health set, soul set. And getting that, acupuncture might be the way to do it, plus hypnotherapy could be doing it, and could be massage, and it could, all that inner work that a lot of people go, oh, that's not for me. Well, that's how you move through the blocks of your shadows that are covering your primal genius.
Rule number 2, work 5 great hours.
There's a concept I teach, Marie, called the 5 great hours concept. You see, this 12-hour workday or 8-hour workday comes from the industrial era, where the more we work, the more tires we could make or more cars we could produce. But we're cognitive workers now. We're creative workers. Our ideas are the currency of our success right now. 5 great hours is simply this. I believe that you don't need to work any more than 5 great hours every day, because just think about it. If you knew how to set up your ecosystem, if you created what I call that tight bubble of total focus, if you worked without your phone, if you use some of the ideas that are in the book, basically your 5 hours would be equivalent to most people's 12 hours or even a few days of work. And so I teach people, work from 8 o'clock till 2 o'clock, and then at 2 o'clock, go to an art gallery, go get a massage, go get on your mountain bike. 5 incredibly powerful hours every day. You don't need to work any more than that.
Rule number 3, go all in.
What's the impact that you want to have on the world?
I want to remind people of who they truly are. And when they see Nelson Mandela or Oprah Winfrey, they say, they did it. But legendary is simply a testimony to ordinary people who thought differently, felt differently, and did different things. And thereby became who they were. And if they can do it, I can do it if I go all in.
Rule number 4, avoid distraction.
If you give yourself that 1 hour that I call the victory hour, free from distraction, free from interruption, what you're doing is you are building an inner core of heroism and undefeatability, so that 6 o'clock you feel fundamentally different. Your neurobiology is on fire. Your metabolic rate is higher. You know this. You've actually connected with your values. If you've taken some time to journal, you've connected with your mountaintop, you're grounded in what's most important, you've practiced some calm, and you've even done some learning. You're far more intentional, stronger, and energetic and creative by 6 o'clock. Then you go out into our messy world where there's confusion and you face challenges, but you're not busy being busy. You're monomaniacally focused on the few things that will get you to your Mount Everest.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, be disciplined.
There's a line in the book which it comes from the Spartan warrior credo: sweat more in trading and you'll sweat more in training and you'll bleed less in war.
Yes.
Victories are won before you even step onto the field. You look at Kobe Bryant, for example, or Shaq or LeBron or Federer or Serena. These people made the moves they made that won them the championship, not because of what they did on the championship court. It was their sweaty, disciplined practice at 5 a.m. while the rest of the world was not watching that allowed them to automate world class in times of pressure. So you're right. 5 a.m., getting up at 5 a.m., joining the 5 a.m. club, giving yourself that time in the quietude when it's the time of least distraction to do the work we're talking about will revolutionize any human life. That's why I say it's the mother of all habits. That's why I'm so passionate about it.
Rule number 6, walk towards your fears.
When I was growing up, my father, who's just celebrated his 83rd birthday,
Beautiful.
and he's one of the great heroes of my life. And when I was growing up, Marie, he shared something from Rabindranath Tagore, the Bengali poet, that I've never forgotten. And my dad used to say, son, when you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. He said, Robin, live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice. And what I mean by that is, no matter how long we get to live, like right now, everyone on the planet, in 100 years, we're going to be dust.
Dust. Total dust. Powder.
And so all the things that we think are so important, the accolades, applause, the number of likes, followers, bikini pics or wearing the right watch, none of that matters. And I believe only 2 things matter on the last hour of our last day. Number 1, who did you become? Were you good? Were you authentic? Did you walk towards your fears and, as messy and bloody as it was, walk through them so you wear your scar tissue with pride?
Rule number 7, trust your art.
As you go out and bring your gifts and genius to the world, as you stand for something higher in a world with a lot of people suffering from victimitis, excusitis, as you bring your glory to your days, you're going to threaten people. I was in the Barcelona Picasso Museum in the Born District, and there was a quote on the wall in the Picasso Museum that said, people were terrified by the genius of Picasso. So the more you shine, the more you're going to attract shadows and darkness.
Wow.
So here's what I would say. I've actually worked out in my journal what I call the troll deconstruction.
Wow. Is this the journal that got stolen?
It's not the one that got stolen, so I still have it.
Okay.
But that's why journaling's so powerful, because you can actually deconstruct and figure these things out.
Sure.
Okay, so here's what I would say. The people who are attacking you, critics and cynics are frustrated dreamers. When they were kids, they were full of awe and wonder, because that's our natural state. But something happened to them as they moved out in the world and pursued their dreams and ambitions that caused them to contract. And so now there are these armchair critics that see Lewis Howes doing amazing things. Well, you actually model possibility for them. The possibility that exists within their mindsets, heart sets, health set, and soul set. And it's much easier for them to try to tear you down than lift themselves up and get in the game themselves. So that would be the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is everything in life, Mr. Riley, one of the characters, towards the end of the 5 a.m. club, gets into the philosophy behind greatness and genius and world class and legendary on a Franschhoek, South Africa vineyard, and he writes a series of letters that are transformational for the other characters. And one of the things he talks about is trusting your art. So I think these people who are trying to tear you down are actually your spiritual friends.
How so?
Well, because they are causing you to trust yourself more. I mean, they are strengthening your resolve to pursue your mighty mission. They are helping you. They are touching the wounds within you and the insecurities. And we have a choice. We can blame, which is losing your power, or we can say, how can I use what they're activating within me to heal these wounds, grow stronger, and build the relationship with my primal genius even more.
Rule number 8, Don't live in your head.
Mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set. Here's what I think, Jan. I'd love to know your thoughts, but we live in a world now where we're actually numb to our heart and we're numb to our feelings and we're numb to love. I was in the gym early this morning. There was a woman, she had taken the weights from the weight area and taken them to the cardio area just for herself. No one else got to use them. Not judging, just reporting. She's numb to feeling empathy for other people who want to work out. As I walked to get my coffee this morning, I kid you not, 6:56 this morning, a woman was banging on the door of a deli, yelling at the employee saying, "Open up," because I guess she really wanted her bagel. What I'm saying is, we're taught to numb out our feelings, so we live in our head. And that's why so many people are saying everything is a mindset, because they're living in their head. But great art, great architecture, great businesses, great lives don't just come from the head. They come from your heart, your feelings, your passion, your gratitude, your body, your health set. And from, I'm going to go to places people don't talk about. Yes, they come from your soul. Your soul is just your higher nature before the world taught you not to believe in who you truly are.
Rule number 9, optimize your craft.
I've talked to so many people who say, well, I must become an expert before I go out there and launch my business. I must become an expert before I go out there and whatever, write that book, create that movie, launch that movement. Well, every professional was once an amateur, and every master was once a beginner, right? And so please remember, there will never be a better time to step into the performance and the human being you've always wanted to be than today. One of the greatest pitfalls I've seen in having worked with so many people over a quarter of a century teaching leadership and elite performance is that people postpone their greatness and their eminence to some distant time in the future when they're going to have more time and the stars will align. And that is one of the greatest mistakes that you could possibly make. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, right? And you do not want to be one of those people who, on the last day of their lives, they were full of regret because they didn't do what they knew they could have done. You are worthy. There are no extra people on the planet today. Every single one of us is born into a unique genius. Only you have the fingerprints you have. Only you have the characteristics you have. Only you have the strengths that you have. You are so unique on a planet of how many billions of people. The thing that happens is we lose our confidence as we get hurt and disappointed by life. And a lot of us, what we do is we shut down and we contract and we protect our once tender, open hearts versus going out into the arena and sharing our gifts in full blazing glory. Please do not think you are unworthy of domain dominance. Please don't think you're unworthy of becoming best in the world at what you do if you sacrifice, train, learn, work with mentors, find the right talent hub, and then optimize your craft every single day until you reach best in the world. A lot of talk these days about legacy, work in a way that leaves a legacy. 22 years ago, I wrote a book called Who Will Cry When You Die, and it was all about legacy. And back then, I was 34 years old, long time ago. And I used to talk so much about legacy. Live in a way that you live in the hearts that you leave behind. That's really the answer. Now, with a little white grizzle, I don't think legacy matters. I think legacy is like trying to get your name on a hospital wing or a monument built after you. I think it's a pursuit of the ego. The real key is not to worry much about how you'll be remembered, but the real key, I suggest to you with great love and respect, is living fully and greatly while you are alive. Because once you're dead, you're dead. You're just a pile of dust. What did the benevolent and great Roman general and warrior and emperor Marcus Aurelius say, Alexander the Great was buried next to his stable boy. We don't matter after we're gone. So I don't think you should. I think it's such a myth to be concerned about legacy if you're trying to live a world-class life. Worry about being world-class while you're alive. Be concerned with optimizing your craft while you have a beating heart. Be concerned with caring for the brothers and sisters on this little planet and standing for honesty, honor, grace, and love. Leave every person you meet better than you found them. And the irony is, if you do that, you will leave a legacy, even though it's not your intention.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is raise your environment.
There's actually a piece of research that just came out, and there was a dummy phone, not even a real phone, but the very physical presence of a phone that wasn't even real reduced people's cognitive ability. In other words, the very presence of a phone makes us dumber.
You know, I was in Thailand and I saw the Golden Buddha. And the story behind the Golden Buddha is they had, the Thai people had this priceless object. And invaders were going to come into Thailand, so they got the idea to put layers of mud over the Golden Buddha. And, the invaders didn't find it. And, many, many centuries later, someone noticed this great monument of mud, but there was gold, sparkling out of it. And so they went through the layers of mud and they found the Golden Buddha. Wow. And the metaphor for all your amazing listeners and viewers is simply this. When we were born into possibility, awe, and wonder, but through our parents' well-meaning and the media and our teachers and friends, and society and our peers and the social media, what happens is we adopt the psychology of average versus the mentality of possibility and legendary. And as we continue to leave the perfection of childhood, we get hurt and we get disappointed. We don't get invited to a birthday party. We lose a love. We get stepped on. We say, I want to be an astronaut and I want to be a billionaire and I want to also be a great chef and I want to be a yoga teacher. And our teacher or our friend says, ha, 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 you're a fool. And there's one of the lines in the 5 a.m. Club, which is every visionary is initially ridiculed before they're revered. But if we're not careful, we pick up all these layers of mud in terms of our psychology and our heart set, our emotionality, and we don't even see it coming, but over time we resign ourselves to average, and then we see Kobe Bryant, and we see Shakespeare, and we see Jean-Michel Basquiat, and we see Nelson Mandela, and we see Richard Branson and Wozniak, and we say, oh, they are geniuses and they're cut from a different cloth, and I need to spend my days being busy, because dreaming and possibility and being loving and having a world-class lifestyle is not within the realm of what I can achieve. The traits that make you strange are the gifts that make you special. And so I know you're different because you wouldn't be here with me now if you didn't feel you're different. You probably don't fit in with most conversations. I sure don't fit in with most conversations. I don't know a lot about most things that most people talk about because I don't participate in the majority. Right? I don't participate in the news. I don't like to gossip. I like to encourage people versus diminish people. I like to be productive versus busy. I like to be creative versus complacent. I like to create value versus take from other people. I like to move into my present and future versus get stuck in the past. I like to be fast versus move too slow. I like to be a leader versus a victim. I like to believe in possibility versus get stuck in rational thinking, because the instinct is so much more powerful than intellect. And all I'm suggesting to you is simply this. It's the very things that make you different that make you authentic. And if you don't fit in, I just want to share with you, I've never fit in. And the very nature of anyone who's living a visionary life, and you are living a visionary life, No matter what you're doing, let's not get trapped in labels. Oh, I'm just a coder. I'm just a receptionist at a restaurant or in an organization. I'm just a yoga teacher. I'm just a gym manager. I'm just a chef in a restaurant. I'm just a teacher. People always say this when I interact with them on the social media. I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm just a student. No, you're not. I'm just a mom. I'm just a dad. No, you're not just. You're very special. There are no extra people on the planet today. And I just want to say to you and validate for you and encourage you, those things that other people might not get, those are your gifts. You might be awkward. Awesome. You see the world through a different lens. Steve Wozniak, who was on my stage at the Titan Summit Zurich, the co-founder of Apple, one of the best people I've ever met. He would not have been able to create the Apple platforms and products that he created if he didn't see the world through a different set of eyes. Steve Jobs saw the world through a different set of eyes. Travis Kalanick of Uber saw the world through a different set of eyes. Jeff Bezos of Amazon saw possibility. Let me have an online store that initially sells books. John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Rosa Parks, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Beethoven, Michelangelo, who did the Sistine Chapel, and in Florence, David, Jonas Salk, Tesla. We could just go on and on and on and on. These people were misunderstood because the nature of a genius is to not fit in. Bill Gates was asked what was the winning formula of Microsoft when Microsoft was really the heavyweight champion of their industry. I think they're a little lost right now, but the larger point again is he replied with this: what made Microsoft Microsoft was not our software. What made Microsoft Microsoft was our hiring. I just want to suggest to you the second point or trait of a world-class company is their ability to hire A players. Here is the brain tattoo I want you to absolutely hardwire into your business philosophy as a leader. You cannot build an A-level company with C-level talent. If your company is not winning in your field right now, you likely have weaknesses in your hiring. Don't just hire people because it's the easiest move to make. A lot of companies spend very little time on hiring and then most of their time managing their hiring mistakes. And you know, if you're building a business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a manager, if you're a CEO, like a lot of the people who watch these mastery sessions and come to my live events, you know I'm speaking truth here. So you really want to nail your hiring. I've been evangelizing one particular message for 2 decades, and it's you can lead without a title. You know, the seduction of society is that you have to have formal power to make a difference, and that's just a lie the world has sold us. The reality is you can lead without a title, and really the difference or the defining trait of a leader is you shift from victimhood. See, victims love making excuses, and if you recite your excuses long enough, you actually think they're going to be true. I see it around the world, you know, people saying these things like, I don't have time to run, or I'm not good enough to be great at my work, or this would never work, or I don't live in the right country, or life is hard. And the more you recite those excuses, you think they're true. So let go of your excuses, start getting some results done, and over time, you're going to rise to your world class. One of the things about the 95%, a lot of them are complaining, they're making excuses, they want epic lives, but they're stuck in the group of the cult of superficiality. The top 5%. The titans, the icons, the A players, the world builders are very different. They are not about superficiality, they are all about granularity. Literally, they have de-seeded the lemon wedges. This is a metaphor that I teach. Basically, I was at a hotel in Luzern, Switzerland, and I love fresh lemon tea. And when they brought the tray to me, I noticed that in the tray was 2 lemon halves, and someone in the kitchen had taken the time to de-seed the lemon wedges. They actually de-seeded them. And when I study F1 teams, and I actually had the privilege to be right with the team at a recent F1. And what I realized is F1, almost like no other sport, is really about de-seeding the lemon wedges. It was the smallest granular detail, the smallest calibration that could make the difference between a top 1 and a 10th place finish. I really want you to think about that. I really want you to think about F1. F1 is won or lost in milliseconds because each lap, if you get a little bit faster and you do it with consistency, because consistency is the mother of mastery, that is the difference between first place and not even placing. And so if you look at the top 5%, they are all about de-seeding the lemon wedges. If you look at the top 5%, they're all about calibration. People might misunderstand you and say, are you obsessive? Why do the details matter? And all you have to do is smile and say, because the details matter. And if you study Beyonce, study the great athletes, you study the great F1 drivers and teams, they do de-seed the lemon wedges. They do calibrate the Pomodoro. They get OAD, that brain tattoo I've become really well known across the planet for, an obsessive attention to detail. OAD. That's what makes the best hotels, the best entrepreneurs, the best teams, the market leaders, the best restaurants, the best hotels, the best cars, the best products, the best user experiences online. They are sweating the tiniest, seemingly innocuous details to create over time a user experience that creates a global base of fanatical followers. One of my brain tattoos that I've become very well known for is, no one will believe in you until you believe in you. And so good people often become seduced by the chatter of their loudest fears. And what I mean by that is we come up with a great idea. Let's say it's to start a project that will allow you to lead your field. Let's say it's an idea for a new product that will allow you to grow a new company. Let's say you come up with an idea for a new painting if you are an artist. Let's say it's an idea that will allow you to take your fitness and your wellness and your longevity to a whole new level of wow. And pretty shortly after you come up with the idea, your ego starts screaming. Because we are good in our comfort zones, but the moment we start to go blue ocean around our next level of mastery, our fears come up because we're going out into the unknown. It's human. You know, if you were to look at the psychobiology of it and you were to study the pure biology of it, there's a term called homeostasis. Human beings are hardwired for a steady state. And that kept us alive. So literally our heart beats around the same amount, the 72 beats per minute, and our blood pressure is within a small bandwidth, and that allows us to survive. But what happens is when we come up with a new idea and when we see a new opportunity and we start to leave our comfort zones into the zone of the unknown where greatness lives, we get scared. And the true heroes and the true titans and the true masters, those people are not fearless. Those are people who have just practiced walking into their fear and living on the razor's edge consistently to the point where they're comfortable amid their discomfort. And that's the great opportunity for you, not to avoid fear, but to be comfortable in the unknown, to be comfortable when you're terrified. And that really is what the great artists, the great entrepreneurs, the great titans, and the great masters are very good on doing. So the first reason good people lose is their faith is not as strong as their fear. Or to put it a bit more elegantly, their fears are larger than their faith. And so to be tactical for you, how do you build more faith? Well, you do what you're frightened to do. And it's a practice. A great athlete practices every morning. And a great producer practices walking into their fears every single day. And what I'm encouraging you to do is every single day do one thing that causes your palms to sweat. Every single day start training your brain to hunt for opportunities to step into that unknown where possibility lives. And if you keep on doing it, you're literally going to build some new neurological hardwiring, a new pathway in your brain where it becomes easier. Because as you know so well, all change is hard at first and it's messy in the middle and it's beautiful at the end. You want to, if you want to have a world-class company, release only magic. Another way I could put it, only release Sistine Chapel ceiling level products to the world. Steve Jobs said it beautifully. He said, I wanted the icons on the iPhone to be so beautiful, people would want to lick the screen. I had a senior leader show up at one of my leadership events and he said, Robin, Steve Jobs was like that. I actually went to his house and met him shortly before he died, and he didn't look very well, but he didn't want to talk about his physical condition. He just wanted to talk about the product we were launching. He was so monomaniacally focused on the user experience. He literally wanted everything to be flawless. That was Steve Jobs' brilliance and obsession. I saw an incredible interview with Johnny Ive by Charlie Rose. And in that, Johnny Ive, who you know is the design genius behind a lot of the Apple products, he said, I knew Steve Jobs and I were spiritual brothers when we were in a store one day. And Steve Jobs said to me, he goes, hey, come on over, Johnny. You got to see this. And I believe from the interview, I believe this is what they said, but they were looking at an arrow. And Steve Jobs said, look at how the sharp point of the arrow is attached to this part, and look how seamless it is, and look at the engineering, and I wonder how they did that. And Johnny Ive said Steve Jobs was just in the pocket of the engineering and beauty behind that piece of artistry they were looking at. The next 90 days, your first 90 minutes at work, make it focused on your single most important project. I'll repeat that again. For the next 90 days, the first 90 minutes of your workday, focus monomaniacally on your single most valuable project. I call it your game-changing move. So it might be creating a new piece of code that will revolutionize the marketplace. It might be a new product that when you launch it will fill a need within your industry that no peer is currently providing. I don't know what your game-changing move is, but this is your poetry. This is your magnum opus for the next 90 days. So what most people do is, people who are playing at victimhood, people who are in the 95%, people who are making excuses about ordinary results in their life, a lot of them are not doing the things that would give them legendary results. And what they do is they get to the office, and rather than using prime time for A activities, they use their best hours watching dancing cats on whatever it is, whatever the video platform is. They spend their best hours surfing the internet, looking at blogs. They spend their best hours playing with notifications, reading notifications, chatting with friends who are not really their friends, but really they're just bored, so they're distracting themselves, which is just a form of medication, because potential unexpressed turns to pain, and they're in a lot of pain, and it's subconscious, and they haven't done the work to know it. So really, they've created these drugs of choice, like too much email, too much web surfing, too much chit-chatting, too much looking at funny-looking videos that make them laugh in the moment, that make them feel happy and give them a short burst of dopamine and maybe a little bit of serotonin, which is the pleasure neurotransmitter, and that's how they get through their day. And all I'm saying is there is so much distraction available to you out there that if you are not acutely careful, it will dominate your days. But the top 5% are very, very different. What I'm really trying to say is this: a ritual for you to run and dial in and hardwire to the point of automaticity, that's the word the researchers use when a habit becomes your new normal, over 66 days, is the 90-91 rule. And to give it to you again so you really remember it, for the next 90 days, your first 90 minutes, create a tight bubble of total focus so that no one can distract you. Turn off your devices, put them in a little plastic bag, put some reminders on your door, maybe some post-it notes that this is my tight bubble of total focus for the next 90 minutes. Tell your team, tell your loved ones, maybe put a do not disturb sign on your door. They'll laugh, and explain it to them that for the next 90 days, I will spend 90 minutes away from distraction, away from technology, away from interruptions, focusing on my magnum opus, focusing on the genius project that I want to bring into the world, because I will never mail it in. I will always bring it on, and I'm going to do this for the next 90 minutes, and I'm going to optimize it and iterate it every day, and I'm going to bring my full bandwidth, because what makes a genius, they all have one trait in common: they were able to spend extended periods of time in isolation, focused monomaniacally on their most valuable project. You've heard me talk about the 2x, 3x mindset. So to double your income and your impact, triple your investment, including your time investment, in two core areas: your personal mastery and your professional capabilities. You see, when you work on your personal mastery, you awaken your mindset, your heart set, your health set, and your soul set. And when you get those four interior empires to world class, you become a force of nature out in the world, and you do epic things. So you want to work on your personal mastery like you're doing here with me right now by listening to this episode. And then the second thing you want to do is you want to work on your professional capability. You want to be the heavyweight champion of your game. You want to dial in your sport, whether your sport is entrepreneurship, whether your sport is being a chef, whether your sport is being a coder, whether your sport is being a manager, whether you're an entrepreneur, a CEO, an astronaut, a poet, I don't know what it is. But when you focus on your personal mastery and your professional capability, and you really work on those, I'm talking about hours every day if you are serious about leading the field, what starts to happen is this: you become a vastly more valuable person. You become very aware. And that's why I say education is inoculation against disruption. That's why I suggest to you with great love and respect, leadership belongs to the learners. Maya Angelou said it beautifully. She said, when you know better, you can do better. With better awareness, you can make better choices. And with better choices, you're going to see better results. I mean, it's the awareness that you bring to every day based on your learning, based on your investments in training. Well, what does that do? It gives you the ability each day to make better choices, better decisions. When you look at a great life, it's just a series of beautiful choices done daily, stacked on over time. And so when you get great awareness, heightened awareness, more acute awareness of what it means to be a leader, an elite performer, an A player, an awesome human being, an epic producer, a fit human being, a loving human, it just goes on. With that awareness, via your learning, you can make better decisions every day, better choices. What makes a great company is less about your good opportunities and a lot more about you having the bravery and discipline to say no to your many good opportunities. What destroys a great company is actually opportunity bloating, too many good opportunities. So literally, you diffuse your team's bandwidth and you get distracted. And you see with so many companies right now, they sort of found their sweet pocket and they were absolutely winning in their marketplace. And they decided to go, we've got this app that is really changing the game and owning the marketplace. Let's get into food delivery. Let's get into this. Let's get into that. It happened to General Electric as well. And you probably know they decided at one point, if we can't be one or two in any market, we're going to get out of that market. That's the key point I'm trying to make. Know your mighty mission, know your monomaniacal focus, and then have the discipline to say no to everything else so you can lock and load on your finest opportunity to completely change the game. I remember being in Soho, New York, and I walked into one of the stores and I bought a coat. And I was leaving on an airplane for home later that day, and I asked the person who was taking care of me, I said, is it possible, and that's a great respectful way to ask for something, is it possible to get this coat hemmed and adjusted a little bit for me? And I said, the thing is that I'm leaving later today. And he looked at me, and I've never forgotten it, because we all have these people in our lives who say one thing or show up in a certain way, and they stay with us for the rest of our lives. And he said to me these words. He said, I'd love to do that for you. I'd love to do that for you. And again, the whole brain tattoo I'm trying to deconstruct here is make your I can larger than your IQ. You know, I remember being in Prague and I asked someone on the other, again, I spent a lot of time in hotels, and I said, is it possible to do this? And here was the reply on the other end of the phone. I think it was someone from the front desk, or maybe it was room service. And I try to eat as clean as possible. So probably it was a request, could I have olive oil and fresh lemon or lemon as the salad dressing? And here's the reply. Just to really lovingly and respectfully and hopefully fluently and elegantly bring this leadership insight home to you. I said, is this possible? And his reply was, anything is possible. So it's really easy to get seduced and stuck into a mindset of can't. You know, someone says, let's start a new business. Someone says, here's a great poetic project that if we release it to the world will help us own our marketplace. And it sounds very obvious again, but ask yourself this, is your default reply a symptom of a mindset of can't, or do you have a mentality of possibility? When someone says, here, read this book, do you shift into can't or can? When someone says, hey, you know what? I'm amped to run a marathon. Do you go, I can't? Is that your default setting in your neurobiological hardwiring? Or do you go, absolutely, or I'd love to do this? You know, it's really, really important, and that is one of the core distinctions of leadership, isn't it? Every great hero was broken. Now, if you were to look at Nelson Mandela, he suffered more than most people. If you were to look at Mother Teresa, she went through incredible adversity over the course of her journey. If you were to study Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Rosa Parks, Shakespeare and Tolstoy, if you look at any great artist, a Picasso, a Jean-Michel Basquiat, if you look at the great world builders, they all suffered. Let me put it to you this way with great love and respect. They all outsuffered the majority. And what I'm suggesting to you is pain can be transformed into power with the intention to transform pain into power. You see, what most people do is this is why most good people lose. They stumble and they fall and they become heartbroken or disappointed by life's challenges that happens to every single one of us. I mean, just to be very authentic, as I always want to be in these Mastery Sessions episodes, I've gone through a lot of hardship in my life. When I was, going through school, very few people believed in me, and I was dismissed and called very, very average. And the principal at the school I was at said, you're not even going to get into university. And you might know my backstory on The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, but that was a self-published book. And I was at the American Booksellers Conference in Chicago with a cover of one of my books around my neck, shaking hands with all the agents that were coming up the escalator. And when I was a self-published author, I used to go into bookstores and say, would you take 3 copies of my book? I'll sign them. Could you put it on the shelf? And I was treated rudely and I was laughed at. And I was on radio shows and I was ridiculed. And then I've gone through a lot of personal pain in my own life. And I've been on the top of the mountain of victory. And I must tell you, I have walked the lonely path in the darkness, in the valley of darkness. But Rumi, the great philosopher, said it so beautifully. He said, allow your heart to be broken over and over and over until it opens. And what I'm suggesting to you is really to dial into this insight. All great heroes have been broken. But rather than blaming 27 years in imprisonment in the case of Nelson Mandela, rather than blaming his naysayers and his detractors in the case of Mahatma Gandhi, rather than saying life is hard, why isn't greatness easy in the case of a Mother Teresa or Martin Luther King Jr., rather than saying, why did this happen to me in the case of Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her seat to someone on a bus because she was being treated like a second-class citizen because of the color of her skin. These great ones all had one thing in common. They leveraged their pain into power. They turned their tragedies into victories.
You wake up every morning with full bandwidth. That's your mental focus, your physical energy, and your willpower. But every time you check your email, you diminish your bandwidth. If you make another choice that's weak versus powerful, you diminish your bandwidth. As you go through your morning, when your bandwidth is at its highest, according to the research, what you start to do is, if you're making weak choices, you're going to start getting weak results. So never check email first thing in the morning. Never get on the social media first thing in the morning. Use your most valuable hours for your most valuable activities.
Leader, lead thyself. So leadership is not just for CEOs. Leadership is not just for prime ministers and presidents and people with large bank accounts and massive offices. Leadership is not only an opportunity, but the responsibility of every man, woman, and child on the planet today. No matter what it is you do, whether you're a filmmaker, a startup entrepreneur, a manager of a corporation, a bread creator, or whatever it's called, a baker. I guess that would be a baker. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a politician, whether you are a gardener, whether you are a wall maker, I don't know, whatever it is you do, but every day you walk out in the world gives you not only that opportunity, but brings with it the awesome responsibility to show up as a leader. Because leadership really isn't a title. You know my book, The Leader Who Had No Title, you've probably read it. Leadership is less about a title, and it's more about an approach, a way of being. And some of the traits of leaders without titles, they're radiant optimists in a world gone cynical. One of the things about leaders without titles, they don't see their job as a job. They see their job as a craft, no matter what their work is. They understand there's dignity in all labor. One of the traits of leaders without titles, they are relentlessly improving everything they touch, so they leave it better than they found it. The first rule for a monumental life is simply leader, lead thyself, which just means see yourself as a leader. And don't wait for the people around you to start leading. Lead where you're planted. Lead by example. You stand up first. Be an army of one when it comes to leadership and spreading that leadership possibility around you. Clarity is the DNA of mastery. So if you look at the titans of business, the true leaders in finance, these people literally will say, look at my charts. If you look at a great military leader, you look at a great athlete, they have such granular, in a world of superficiality, they have shifted to massive granularity so they know in intimate detail exactly what their future timeline will look like. Why? Because clarity breeds and builds and is the DNA of mastery. You want to have a very clear vision of what your future is going to look like. When you know in intimate detail what your future will look like, then you automatically, subconsciously as well as consciously, can say no to the important, so you say a giant yes to the few things that are most important. You've heard me share this before. Confucius said it so well. The person who chases two rabbits catches neither. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is this exercise before you go to sleep tonight. Let's make this very tactical. I call it the 100-year timeline. On a single page from where you now are, 100 years out into your ideal future. I want you every single milestone on a single line to say, here's where I now am. Here's what's going to happen next week, next month, next quarter, next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, 75 years, 1 year, 100 years, until you have a 100-year timeline. On the other side of the piece of paper with crayons. So you tap into your part of the brain responsible for creativity, your right brain. With crayons, draw out your ideal family life, draw 1 year away, draw out your business life 1 year away, draw out your adventure life 1 year out into the future, draw out your financial life, draw out your material life, literally on a page with crayons, so you're not thinking. Because here's, I think, a needle-moving insight. World class comes from instinct versus intelligence. You get your best ideas when you get out of your thinking. And just to give you some neuroscience, the seat of reasoning is the prefrontal cortex, but there's a phenomenon I teach in my live events called transient hypofrontality. This is the secret of genius. Geniuses don't get their ideas for Uber, Amazon, the electric bulb, Tesla, Shakespeare, the polio vaccination, SpaceX. Great ideas don't come from the intellects. They don't come from the neocortex reasoning and thinking. All great heroes and great inventors and great creators dialed into something deeper. When you get out of your neocortex through solitude and my life structure that I teach called the tight bubble of total focus, and when you get away from distraction and you immerse yourself in deep creativity and creation, and you find your laboratory, or what I call your Menlo Park, like Edison had his Menlo Park, which was with the wilderness away from the world, what happens? The prefrontal cortex gets silent, and it's called transient, which means temporary, transient hypo, small, frontality. The neocortex, the seat in your brain of thinking, actually shuts down for a short period of time. This is profound information and will confirm your brain is built for genius. You might have a great mindset, positive thinking, but if you have a heart set full of anger, if your emotional life is sad, if you're disappointed from the past, if you haven't done the sweat lodges and the journaling and the body work and the affirmations to really open up a heart set, then you can have the mindset of an Elon Musk. You can have the mindset of a Steve Jobs. You can have a mindset of a Kobe, but you're going to sabotage yourself from world class. And to me, this is the great myth of positive thinking. You see a lot of people, they read all the books, they're positive thinkers, they've got the vision boards, nothing changes. Why? Because subconsciously, there's this wounding and a lack of deservability, and it's unconscious. And so they haven't done the work, or you may have not done the work to make the wounds of undeservability and scarcity and the low self-worth. That's why positive thinking alone does not work. This is, to me, a revolutionary insight. And by the way, a lot of the people who teach positive thinking in the past are men. So it's very male mind. And a lot of the people who are pioneers of heart set are women. Heart, empathy, healing. And so self-mastery to me, and this is a pioneering model that I teach at Personal Mastery Academy, it's not just mindset. That's only 25% of self-mastery. And as you know, self-mastery is the DNA of outer mastery. You're never going to perform higher than what's going on within. Mindset is only 25%. Heart set, your emotional life, working from confidence and love and service, and that sense of internal freedom is only another 25%. So those two are only 50%. There's a third interior empire you want to get to world class, which is health set. Working on your energy, your nutrition, your daily exercise, hacking your longevity, eating the right supplements, getting a massage every 2 weeks. You know my 2 massage protocol. Doing your 60-minute nature walk every week so that your health set is at world class. But that's only 75% of the equation towards self-mastery. You can have a great mindset, great heart set, great health set, but if you haven't worked on your soul set, turning down your ego, you know what disease and what energy depletion is caused by your ego beating you relentlessly about you not being enough and seeing your industry peers succeeding and you feel insecure and irritated and angry and jealous? Well, where do you do that work? Within your soul set, the fourth interior empire. And as you do that, you turn down the ego and you open up your humanity and you open up your spiritual life and you become more soulful. And then you release work that is artistry versus just to win in the next few months. And you literally give your life over to a mighty mission that is larger than your ego. And you literally start to see your work as a ministry for the benefit of humanity. And if you're an artist or an entrepreneur or CEO, manager, a coder, a doctor, a firefighter, but literally, if you saw your work as your poetry and your artistry, and you were on a mighty mission that was larger than even your ego and yourself, what would the caliber of your output be? To thine own self be true. Oscar Wilde said it so much more elegantly than I ever could. He said, be yourself, everyone else is taken. Jack Welch, when he was at General Electric, one of our clients, GE, he said, never lose yourself on the way to the top. Wow, what amazing advice for you and me. Never lose yourself on the way to the top. To thine own self be true. Never betray your authenticity. Never lose your boots on the groundedness. To thine self be true means as you make your rise to legendary, don't forget what makes you great. Hard work, humility, serving your customers, working on your craft, playing the long game, understanding the genius takes decades versus good genetics. The bow too tightly strung is easily broken, says one of the proverbs. Balance is a gorgeous thing. So be monomaniacal in your execution around your high-value targets, your HVTs, your mission plan, but also build in some rewards. And that's going to send a gorgeous message to your conscious and your subconscious mind that, hey, this daily practice of execution around my deliverables is a beautiful thing. And you create this thing called momentum. And the monk who sold his Ferrari, I went back and I saw this recently. I think there's a whole chapter on momentum. And you become like this. I love skiing. You start off small, but as you go down the slope, you pick up momentum. A lot of people say, Robin, where do I start? I want to start a new business. I want to become a better artist. I want to find the love of my life. I want to be a world-class creative. I want to multiply my financial life. Where do I start? You just start. You just start. There's great power in the start. And when you start, life starts supporting you. Most leaders, most business people, most entrepreneurs, most human beings have never learned to be masterful communicators. And the very nature of influence and impact, which is the leader's job, is communication. I mean, in school, were you given a communication course? Very few people have been taught that. In your personal relationships, have you read books on communication? Well, that leads to, in an intimate relationship, or even just with a friend, it's the little miscommunications that over time stack into loss. In your intimate relationships, it's the little conversations that you could have had in 5 minutes if you had the tools to communicate and the awareness to speak. So literally, you could release the anger and build understanding and speak out your needs and feel the need to be heard. All those little things, if you had learned how to do that over and done it in 5 minutes with your intimate partner, you might not have lost the relationship. And in your professional life, learning to communicate inspires your teammates. If you look at the great leaders of humanity, the Nelson Mandelas, the Mother Teresas, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s, the John F. Kennedys, if you look at the great business builders, Steve Jobs, great example, right? He would be on the stage at the product launch and then that favorite line, one more thing. And that's when he would reveal the latest piece of technology that would create industry dominance when Steve Jobs was at Apple. Well, he was a masterful communicator, and Bud Tribble over at Apple called it his reality distortion field. Steve Jobs was a master salesman. He knew exactly what to say. My team runs a protocol called the 10x value obsession. How can we deliver 10 times the value at every single touch point of the user experience that our customers who come to the live events or go into my online courses or even read my books are expecting? They pay $20 for a book or $30 for a book. How can I give them millions of dollars of real value? Someone said to me recently, in your mastery sessions, you're giving away the store or something like that. I sort of can't believe how much value you give. And my reply was because my intent is to serve. I mean, this is not a business for me. Yes, I run a business and a series of businesses. I'm an entrepreneur. But the point really is, my intent is so much larger than that. I'm on a mission bordering on an obsession to help everyday people understand the neurobiology of greatness. And they can lead without a title. If you've read my book, The Leader Who Had No Title, that they have heroism in them, and then giving them the neuroscience, the research, the performance data that will help them win in their careers, live great lives, live their potential. This is so much more than a business for me. And this comes from value number 2. I see this as a movement, a sense of community, a sense of giving, a sense of helping you fortify the genius within you in a very difficult world. So you say, Robin has given me thousands of ideas in these free mastery sessions that I can choose to act on every day to go out there and fireproof my heroism so I can do great work that wows the world, do great things for my family, and leave an impact on history that stands the test of time. And if I do that in my own way, then I've served you and I've done my job well. For a monumental life is get great at your craft. Look, you have a gargantuan competitive advantage because most people are caught up or card-carrying members. And I say this with respect, but it's reporting reality. Most people in the world right now in business are card-carrying members of the cult of mediocrity. In a previous episode, and I share this in my leadership presentations, I believe the world today is suffering, and that word, I'm choosing it consciously and carefully, from the collective deprofessionalization of business. A little while ago, I was in an airport. There was an elevator repairman, and he had his boombox cranking out hard rock. Well, that's fine, but he's at work. He's not at home. I go into a store these days. There are people listening to music out loud when they should be taking care of customers. You walk into an airport and you see people behind the desk or whatever, rather than being pros, owning the game. You literally see them chit-chatting, or again, looking at videos of dancing cats and people riding bicycles off the roofs of their houses. You know what I'm talking about. I call it the collective deprofessionalization of business. Very few people, relatively speaking right now, say, this is my craft. I've got to be a pro. I've got to study the audiobooks that relate to my game. I've got to find mentors. I've got to read the books. I've got to practice like Federer or Serena Williams or Muhammad Ali used to practice. You know what Muhammad Ali once said? He said, I hated every single one of those early morning runs, but I loved the idea of being champion of the world. Before you go to sleep, ask yourself this question. Did I live out my plan for today? Your days are your life in miniature. All you need to do is not worry about the next week, the next month, the next year. Forget about that. That's a waste of time. Own your day. Your days are your life in miniature. As you live each day, so you craft the rest of your life. And the days slip into weeks, the weeks become months, the months become years. Before you know it, you've lived a legendary life because all you did was dial into gorgeous, brilliant, productive, creative, loving, healthy, soulful days. Your days are the pockets and instruments of genius. Get those right, your life will take care of itself. Don't live your life on the outside to fill these holes on the inside that you haven't filled. Start the interior work of self-mastery to fill the holes so your mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set are full. And then you'll feel joy when you wake up every morning. And you'll Work not for the money, but for the meaning. And you'll create with a fire in your belly that will make you undefeatable. It's not because you're pursuing income, it's because you're pursuing impact and craft and love of you honoring the genius within you. Do you see what I'm referring to? Your outer life, you still might work hard. I love working hard. I love it. But I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because of who I am. I have to write. I have to serve. I have to use the rest of my life to be an instrument of impact for as many people as possible. You're not very smart, or you can't do that. If you're a teacher and you say, you know what, you can never be an astronaut, you can never be an empire maker, you're not smart enough to do this. And some teachers said that to me along my journey. You'll never finish university. And just to share the reality, I not only finished university with a science degree, but I did a law degree and then a master's of law degree. And I only share that, which is I haven't had it easy. I've been put down. I've had teachers who didn't see my potential. That's just reality. You want to block out the noise and listen to the signal, which is you're built to be a possibilitarian. You're built to be great. You have genius within you. So calibrate your languaging so your words to yourself are world class. Few people who could succeed actually do succeed because they've given up on learning, study, and growth. LSG, learning, study, and growth. So the neurobiologists and neuropsychologists will tell us that the human brain craves learning, and it craves curiosity, and it craves novelty. And unfortunately, a lot of us, we learned in school, but the moment we left school and walked out into the world, we've given up on our personal commitment to growth. And so I'm inviting you with great love and respect to reclaim the curiosity you once knew as a child when you were overflowing with awe and wonder. You see, our natural state is the way we're as children. We're built to be curious. We're built to be passionate. We're built to be full of energy. We're built to question things. You look at a little child and it's like, Mommy, Daddy, why? You look at an adult and they've contracted their curiosity. They've given up on seeing the magic in the world. They no longer grow. And so the mindset I want you to start practicing, because no idea works unless you do the work. To install a core belief, you just practice it until it becomes automatic. That's how you actually get to change your psychology. And so the mindset I invite you to start practicing each day is what I call the 2x, 3x mindset. To double your income and your impact, triple your investment in two core areas. Number one, your personal mastery, and number two, your professional capability. And how do you do that? Again, you do it through learning, study, and growth. So I guess what I'm suggesting to you is you look at most of the population and you commit yourself to what I call anti-majority behavior. If you want to have a great life, a soaring life, a creative life, a productive life, a ultra prosperous life, look at what most people do and do the opposite. So most people, what they do is they love consuming as opposed to creating. We live in a civilization of consumers. Buy this, eat this, do this, consume this. But the top 5%, those who play in the rare air of world class, are not consumers, they're creators. Suffering gets a bad rap in our world today. In society, we all want it quick. But if you look at, again, a Nelson Mandela, a Mother Teresa, a Mahatma Gandhi, a Rosa Parks, a Martin Luther King Jr., a Marcus Aurelius. You look at the great statespeople, the great women who led nations, the great men who led movements. I've been studying samurai lately. I've been studying a lot of the great warriors. I've been reading a lot about Alexander the Great. And you could say, well, Robin, in the comments section or whatever, you could say, Robin, some of these people were bloody, some of these warriors. And I hear you. My larger point is simply this. If you look at the great warriors or the great empire builders or the great heroes of humanity, they all had one thing in common. Many of them developed invincible moral authority to live by their deepest vision, values, and virtues through the hard winters of deep suffering. A GCA, a gargantuan competitive advantage in a world where everyone wants it easy. They want a warm house. They want a car with heated seats if you live in a cold place. We want great food. We want a life of ease. We want all our devices around us. We want easy friends who don't make us, maybe who don't stretch us. We want to, if we even read, we want easy books. I guess what I'm suggesting to you is voluntary discomfort will build you and strengthen you. And the great heroes of history often didn't do it voluntarily. They suffered. They suffered in a prison cell. They suffered for the benefit of their movement. They suffered long treks through mountains with not a lot of food when they're on a military campaign. They suffered the humiliation of being attacked by their critics. And so in this age of ease, we are becoming weak as leaders, weak as humans, weak as possibilitarians. And I'm just saying to you, sure, have your nice things. We all want a nice life, myself included. And yet make sure you don't fall into the chasm or the trap of living a life that is so easy that you don't develop those muscles of strength, fiery resolve, and moral authority.
Why do so many people on the planet right now medicate themselves? They medicate themselves with too much technology. Anyone agree with me? Show of hands or a round of applause. Like they are medicating themselves in front of that white screen. 110 times checking the smartphone every day. That is not checking your technology. You know what that is? That is an addiction and an escape from what is. And if you said to most people, did you know you're addicted to your smartphone? Did you know you're addicted to your notifications? Did you know you're addicted to your television? Did you know you're addicted to your excuses? Did you know you're addicted to gossip? Did you know you're drinking too much alcohol because you are addicted to it? Did you know that this is all a flight from what is? Because deep down inside, the deepest unknown part of you knows that you are in pain over potential unlived. They would fight you to the death. Am I making sense here? Show of hands. Deep down inside, I believe most people on the planet are heartbroken. Why? Because they have betrayed the visions, ambitions, values, mission in their heart. They have betrayed their talent by buying into the mass hypnosis that the world has sold them. And now they're 35 and they're 45 years old. And they're just, oh, no, this is what everyone does. And they just check. And then, you know what Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician, said? Most people, their misery is derived by their inability to sit quietly in a room by themselves. You know how many people are frightened of their own company? And I've shared with you, right? No, seriously, they're frightened of their own company. I've shared with you the neurobiology, transient hypofrontality. You can't play at Edison. You can't play at Misty Copeland. You can't play at world class unless you bring yourself away from the world and do the practice, do the training, do the thinking to set up transient hypofrontality. And that creates the pharmacy of mastery. And it brings you from beta to alpha. And it releases the dopamine and the serotonin. And the psychologists have told us that state is flow. And I guess what I've been suggesting with transient hypofrontality, you have flow within you. You have genius within you. Most of us are so distracted. They're so overstimulated.
Persistency versus the short game. We do live in a world where everything just happens so fast that if we have a project or a cause or a mission, if it doesn't happen instantly, or if it doesn't manifest or materialize the way we want it within a month or within a quarter, or even within a year, we give up. And we then start chasing the next shiny toy of opportunity. So I was in Piazza Navona in Rome a few weeks ago working on a new book. And I love Piazza Navona because it's one of the most beautiful squares on the planet. And when I'm in my creative cycle, I go there just to refuel. And if you walk into Piazza Navona, what you're going to see is, I think it's called the Four Rivers sculpture by Bernini. And the point I'm trying to make to you is, as I looked at this masterpiece of a sculpture, what I realized is the true masters are not all about impatience. They're not all about the short game. They understand that world class is a process and that genius could take decades. And what makes rare air output is the ability to stick with a singular vision of your masterpiece, whatever that is, a great company, a great family, a gorgeous life, a new book, a film, I don't know. But mastery comes through deep focus, patience, and persistency. And when I looked at Bernini's sculpture, you could see the level of detail, and so few people have it. It really is a gargantuan competitive advantage, a GC, what I teach in my work as a GCA, a gargantuan competitive advantage, because most people don't have patience anymore. Most people do not have the grit and the resolve to stay with a sculpture, that's a metaphor for you, their sculpture for maybe a year on just a little piece. And maybe the next piece of your sculpture, another year or 2 years. It took 22 years to build the Taj Mahal, but it became one of the 7 wonders of the world. That's a metaphor for you that I really want you to think about. There's a reason why the visionary founder of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, rises before the sun. There's a reason why Michelle Obama rises very early. There's a reason why Tim Cook, who's leading Apple, gets up before the dawn. First of all, the hours between 4 and 6 are the time of least distraction in this age of dramatic interruption. Number 2, the hours before the sun rises is the period where your brain is most available to your primary creativity. So while you're sleeping, your brain actually washes itself, but also it lets go of the residue of the previous day while you are resting and while you are recovering. When you wake up, your thinking is fresh, your creativity is most pristine, you are most available to access your gifts and your talents. So those are some of the reasons why I encourage you to get up early. You might say, Robin, well, I'm not an early riser. I can't put mind over mattress. I can't win the battle of the bed. Grandma never got up early. Dad couldn't get up early. I guess I'm not the kind of person who can rise before the sun. And what I would suggest to you is simply this. What science confirms, and in particular the data of University College London, you do any new habit, practice it for 66 days, and you will arrive at the place of automaticity. In other words, it'll be easier to run the new habit than not to. 66 days of rising at 5 a.m. will get you to a place where it's easier to get up at 5 a.m. than not to get up at 5 a.m. You'll reach a place of automaticity. In my book, The 5 a.m. Club, I say all change is hard at first, and it's messy in the middle, and it's gorgeous at the end. I'll repeat that again because it's so important. All change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and it's gorgeous at the end. In the book, there's a chapter on the habit installation process that actually explains the 3 phases every habit goes through before you wire it into the place where it's automatic. Number 1, destruction. Number 2, integration, and number 3, implementation. Really important to remember them. So you can get up early. You can install habits. As a matter of fact, neuroplasticity, which is the phenomenon that speaks to the fact the brain is like a muscle. The more you flex it and push it, the more it's going to grow. You have that gift. It's not just for Federer and Serena Williams and Oprah Winfrey and Shakespeare and Jean-Michel Basquiat and Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. You have a brain that has the capability to grow and adapt. What is the 20-20-20 formula that lies at the core of the 5 a.m. club method? Well, the first 20 minutes, move, sweat. You'll release BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which will increase the neural connections of your brain, as well as repair brain cells damaged by stress, and also promote neurogenesis, which is the formation of new brain cells. I know this is a lot of information, but I want to give you great content in this video. Exercising for 20 minutes first thing in the morning from 5 to 5:20, the first part of the 20-20-20 formula, releases dopamine, which is the inspirational neurotransmitter. How valuable is that for your creativity and productivity for the rest of the day? Cortisol, the fear hormone, is highest first thing in the morning. Exercising will reduce it. Serotonin is released, so you'll feel happier. Now it's 5:20, you're full of energy, you've optimized your cognition, your focus is increasing. It's only 5:20, the rest of the world is asleep. Just imagine that advantage you already have. Second pocket of the 20-20-20 formula is all about reflection. We live in a world where people don't reflect anymore. A lot of people are busy being busy, but what's the point of being busy around the wrong things? So for 20 minutes from 5:20 to 5:40, you reflect, you pray or write in a journal, you meditate, you can visualize, you can script out a blueprint for a great day ahead, which habit researchers call a pre-commitment strategy, which actually increases your willpower and your ability to get your most important priorities done. Okay, now it's 5:40, from 5:40 to 6 o'clock. This is the final 20-minute pocket of the 20-20-20 formula. The first pocket was about move, the second is reflect, and the third is grow. I've coached billionaires and CEOs and NBA superstars and members of royalty for over 20 years. Here's what I've realized when I work with the best of the best. They love to learn. They love to grow. They don't see investing in yourself or investing in your skills or investing in your growth a cost. They think about the value received. I call it the 2x, 3x mindset, to double your income and your impact, triple your investment in two core areas, your personal mastery and your professional capability. So for 20 minutes, what do? You listen to a podcast, you review your journal notes, you read a book, you watch a valuable video, you just do something, you read an autobiography, you do something to grow your capacities and materialize more of the potential you have been born into. And now it's 6 o'clock, you've optimized your mindset, you've purified your heart set, you've calibrated your health set, you've escalated your soul set, you feel fundamentally different. In the 5 a.m. Club, there's another model called the 4 Habits of History Makers, and one of the elements is day stacking. The whole idea is simply this: get your mornings right. Your days are going to be fundamentally more energetic, creative, productive, and high impact. And a great week is nothing more than a series of great days, and a great month is the same thing, and a great quarter is just a series of well-lived weeks. And it just continues, and it creates this upward spiral of success just by getting from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. your victory hour to world class every morning. Consistency really is the mother of mastery, and own your morning. You're really going to elevate your life.
When something doesn't work out during your day and you get discouraged, you lose your fire, ask yourself this question: what's the opportunity here? That's what WTOH stands for. What's the opportunity here? What I've realized is when things don't work out, the victim says, oh, boo-hoo, poor me. They get stuck in sadness or anger or regret, and some of them spend the rest of their life in that state. What the leader does is this: you feel the pain, you notice the disappointment. You never want to suppress that. That would build up the toxic emotions within you. So feel the disappointment. If it's, you forgot your keys somewhere, you lost your wallet, you missed a train, you missed a meeting, you lost a sale, or maybe it's something heavier. You just got your heart broken. You just lost your job. You just got some negative news from your doctor at your annual checkup. I mean, that's one of the things that happens in life. We all face very hard times. When those things happen, feel the emotion. Do not suppress it, because the quickest way out of the painful or sad emotions is straight in. But here's the real key. Ask yourself, what's the opportunity here? How can I use this small or large negative event to grow? How can I use this situation to give me more wisdom, to give me more acumen, to make me more experienced? How can I use this situation to strengthen me and fortify me? How can I use this situation to become more authentic and more real? Because it's the difficult things in life that crack open our social mask and allow us to be more real and more authentic. How can I use this situation to build my relatability so I'm more relatable to human beings? And ultimately, how can I use this situation as fuel to make my life even better? If you simplify versus go complex, what happens is you can then take your energy and your focus and your personal resources and focus them on the few things that will be most important. And that's what the great ones do. They marshal and harness their resources, their mental focus, their physical energy, their personal willpower, their individual gifts, their time. I call those the 5 assets of elite performance. And they focus them on just a few things. And I want you to think about it in your life. If you stripped away all the noise, you focused on the signal, you stripped away all the complexity, you got monomaniacally concentrated on just a few things, of course you'd be brilliant at those few things. Most people, the 95%, and this is no judgment, just reporting, but they're pleasure seekers. If you look at the true warriors of humanity, you look at the true empire builders, you look at the true titans who are constructing a better world, they're less about pleasure seeking because they understand that growth comes through discomfort. Willpower is built through voluntary acts of quote unquote suffering. I mean, to do hard work is to grow. To push yourself on a project to places that frighten you is to expand your creative capabilities. I hope I'm making sense for you here. But pleasure seekers don't create monuments. If you look at the Taj Mahal, if you look at Piazza Navona in Rome, if you look at the Great Wall of China, if you look at the Mona Lisa created by Da Vinci, if you look at the Sistine Chapel created by Michelangelo, if you look at any great company, okay, an Apple under Steve Jobs, for example, or it might have been Elon Musk's companies. I don't know what companies most speak to you, but if you look at any world-class company, Under Armour comes to mind. These companies took grit, they took suffering, they took relentlessness. Any creative person has to face the arrows and slings of their critics. So you get to world-class through the doorway of discomfort. And how do you build a strong inner core? You do it by walking into the metaphorical hard winters of growth. That's how you train. You look at a great athlete. It's the way they show up in the championship game is simply how they showed up in the lonely light of the early hours at practice. It wasn't easy. I mean, I always think of Muhammad Ali. He said, I didn't like any one of those early morning training sessions, but I said to myself, suffer now and spend the rest of your life as a champion. We live in a world where the dominant message of society is if you want to be a leader, be sort of mean, be aggressive. You know, you got to thump your chest a little more if you want to lead the field. You got to speak a little bit louder. You've got to be all about me versus thinking about we. And so what I want to offer to you right now is simply a reminder, because your wisest part knows the truth. You know, on the last hour of your last day, when you reflect on your life, if you were not kind, I think you're going to feel heartbroken. One of my mentors when I was a young lawyer was a judge, and a very special man. I learned so much from him. I was so incredibly influenced by his commitment to excellence, by his integrity, and by his outright honor. And a few years ago, he had retired, and I made the trek back to where he was living. And we spent 2 glorious hours together where we remembered, you know, our best times when I was working for him. And towards the end of our conversation, I asked him for advice, you know, like, what's most important? What are the best lessons you've learned from life? What suggestions do you have for me as I go forward, as I pursue my mountaintops? And he said this, and he said, you know, he spoke of excellence and he spoke of honesty. And then at the very end of our conversation, he said, and Robin, please always remember to be kind. He said, oh, Robin, it's so important to be kind. And then he reached over and he did something he'd never done. He hugged me and he said, Robin, I love you. Leadership is not about a title. Leadership is not about the size of your office. Leadership is not about having formal authority. Leadership is a mindset. Leadership is a way of operating through your days. Leadership is a heart set. Leadership is a way of being. And I think, you know, we're now in Leadership 2.0. The old model of leadership said you need to have a lot of money, or you need to be a prime minister or president. You need to be a CEO or a managing director in order to be a leader. Leadership 2.0 is fundamentally different. Leadership 2.0 simply says, if you can breathe, if you are alive, you not only have the opportunity, you have the responsibility to show leadership, not only in your work, not only in your creativity, not only in your impact, not only in your influence, but even in your personal life. Install the lead without a title mindset. And again, that's just a way of thinking. It's an approach. No matter what you do, no matter what your station in life is, start thinking like a leader, because you really have a choice when you go out in the world every day. You can be a victim or you can be a leader, but you can't do both. And so the more you practice showing leadership in your work, showing leadership with your family, showing leadership in your community, showing leadership in your private self, practice drives performance. And the more you practice it, the more you start to step into the mindset of a leader without a title. If you do not have a cause and a burning fire and a purpose for your life, no matter what you do, taxi driver, teacher, firefighter, carpenter, baker, once you know a cause, then I'll put it to you this way, a compelling cause to donate the rest of your life to is the antidote to apathy. But most people don't know. You say, what do you want to stand for? I don't know. Good question. You say, what 5 things need to happen over the next 90 days for this to be the best quarter of your life? I don't know. You ask yourself, what are your top 5 values? I don't know. You ask most people, what is your magnificent obsession that gets you out of bed at 5 in the morning with fire in the belly and sparkle in your eyes? And they say, I don't know. See, most people do not spend the time to think. They're busy being busy, caught up in the complexity of every day. Divorce yourself from the majority. Get involved in what I'm sharing with you is anti-majority behavior.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. If you want another amazing video highlighting excellence in the Indian community, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.